First, let me thank the organizers for this very kind invitation to be here today, to participate in this very important conversation. I think the convener of this conference, I'm publisher of the Global Patriot newspaper, Mr. Stanley Ibe, and all the conveners deserve praise for providing this platform for this conversation on patriotism, security, governance, and nation building. Now, this opportunity, I must say, is greatly enriched by the quality and diversity of participants, especially our compatriots from the civil society, from public service, including the international public service, from business, and of course the diaspora community. I do not think there's any question at all that we meet today at a moment of considerable challenges for our nation. The economy, security, and national unity deserve, special mention. But these problems, grave as they are, present some of the best opportunities for the socio-economic advancement, the stability, and the prosperity of Nigeria. They provide the circumstances, in my respectful view, for reinventing our economy, and reinventing the social contract between the government and the people, and the design and purposes of the republic itself. The COVID-19 pandemic struck at the heart of our resurgent economy. Our economy, of course, as you know, prior to that, recorded 4 consecutive quarters of growth. But the pandemic cost us jobs, revenues, local and foreign investment, and a good amount of resentment, and some restiveness in the community. But in answer, we designed an economic sustainability plan, focusing on creating hundreds of thousands of jobs by a massive investment in infrastructural development. The key areas of that infrastructural development were mass agriculture, mass housing, and we also had a 5 million solar connections scheme in the first phase. As much as possible in executing these infrastructural developments, we focused on the use of local materials, labor, and expertise, with the objective of creating jobs and opportunities, and especially putting money in the hands of as many as possible. So the plan included a survival fund, which gave priority to 45% female beneficiaries and 5% of Nigerians with special needs. So that fund included the payroll support for 500,000 employees from diverse, small businesses who received salaries for their staff for 3 months. Also a guaranteed offtake scheme where government guaranteed payment for the production of certain items, from small businesses. These items included masks and PPEs. Then also 100,000 MSMEs benefited from support for artisans, part of the fund. So 166,000 artisans across the country, and another 166,000 transport workers in particular also benefited from that support. We also had something we described as a formalization support scheme, where 250,000 new businesses received free company registration from this fund. Then there was a general grant to MSMEs where we had a total of 100,000 MSMEs benefiting from the fund. For mass agriculture, for that scheme, we enumerated about 5.4 million farmers. But the interesting aspect of this, or 2 interesting aspects, is that possibly for the first time, we geotagged these farmers to their farmlands, making it easier for us to identify where these farmers are actually located. And also, we were able to ensure that the received BVNs, about just about half of this number, close to 3 million, now also have BVN, which is a massive push for financial inclusion, which of course is one of our objectives. The CBN has also disbursed, as part of the Anchor Borrowers Program, about 557 billion to 2.8 million farmers, cultivating about 3.5 million hectares of 23 staple and cash crops, as well as rearing, aquaculture, livestock, and poultry across the country. Now, the sum of close to about 64 billion has also been recently disbursed for the 2020-2021 dry season farming. An important part of ensuring that farmers are resourced, especially new farmers coming to the business for the first time. Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprise Investment Scheme, that's a scheme that had been in existence, which was given extra funding for the purposes of the Economic Sustainability Plan. And under this scheme, a total of about 106 billion naira has been disbursed to 27,956 beneficiaries. The minimum disbursement there is between 150,000 naira, and the maximum is for 10 million, depending on the type of farm. And this of course also has a lot to do with the size of the farming enterprise itself. We've also had targeted disbursements to poultry farmers to help offset working capital requirements for feeds. This was a significant problem, but we were able to target poultry farmers in particular who had, there were several concerns around capital for provision of feeds. Also, about 192 billion has been disbursed to 426,000 beneficiaries as part of the targeted credit facility. This again is a CBN disbursement. 375,000 households have been beneficiaries. Of that number, about 50,000 MSMEs have received anywhere between 80,000 and 1 million naira. And this, has been, of course, spread across the country. Of course, a lot of the details, we can't go into the details, the granular details of this. The Economic Sustainability Plan also had specific interventions for the manufacturing sector. Again, under CBN disbursements, a total now of about 467 billion has been disbursed to 129 projects. 32 of them are agricultural projects, especially those in food processing. And I'll come to this point about processing later on. 20 in services, 10 in mining, and 68 in manufacturing projects. And this has created in excess of about 100,000 direct and indirect jobs. Key projects that have been funded include the Lagos Rail project, the steel complex in Kaduna by African Natural Resources and Mines Limited, the Boa Cement expansion, Pacific Energy expansion, and 11 companies also for gas expansion. So the healthcare sector, we also did considerable intervention in the healthcare sector, disbursements of up to 76 billion for 76 projects, mostly pharmaceuticals and hospitals. These include the financing and acquisition of about 16 MRI machines by hospitals across the country, about 22 medical scanning machines by hospitals across the country. And of course, assistance for several pharmaceutical companies. Now, so as we all know, the latest GDP figures show that we have exited the recession. This recession, as you know, of course, is also the second in 4 years. And the reason why I've gone through some of these interventions, a bit of detail, is to demonstrate how it is that the Economic Sustainability Plan has been largely instrumental for enabling us to exit the recession. but also to underscore the fact that exiting a recession, especially where it's induced by a pandemic such as we had, where there is an unplanned loss of jobs, loss of opportunities, loss, and loss of investment. Where that happens, obviously you need a lot more money. Many countries of the world that have intervened have had to spend large sums of money, even countries that would ordinarily not want to encourage these types of extra budgetary spending. Many of them have had to undertake serious spending. We have, of course, been constrained by revenues, and as you know, we are not unlike the US or the UK. We simply cannot issue more currency. That obviously would create the kinds of problems I'm sure we're all very familiar with. But I want to underscore the fact that we certainly need more revenues in order to be able to do a lot more, especially in terms of a more rapid growth. But the growth rate of 0.11%, though it's marginal, is encouraging, because the economists will say there's a V-shaped recovery with a growth of 3.74 percentage points from the previous quarter, which is why there is some reason to cheer. Indeed, although growth for the full year 2020 was still negative at minus 1.92%, it was still far better than the predictions of both domestic and international analysts. We're now set for sustained growth in the coming months. And of course, there are constraints, and we can debate those constraints from now for a very long time. But our view is that our focus must be on productivity. In other words, value addition. So in agriculture, for example, our focus will be on processing of raw produce, rather than the export of raw produce, which is why some of the targeted funding has gone into food processing and has gone into other forms of processing. Adding value, in our view, means more jobs, and obviously the value chain makes more money. The same with mining. We're focusing on beneficiation, more beneficiation. Although we've seen quite a few investments in gold refining already, manufacturing, and of course I'm sure some of us are familiar with those examples of investments in gold refining. But manufacturing, especially light manufacturing, is also key. It's our view that this country, especially with the opportunities presented by the African Free Trade Continental agreements, can be the factory for the continent. And this is entirely possible. Of course, there are many who will say, oh, so we have power problems and all of that. But quite frankly, I think that even factoring in all of that, we can still deliver cheaper goods on the whole. And this is evident from what we're able to do, even with the constraints we have across Africa. And some of the things that we're net exporters of already have demonstrated that we can produce at comparatively good prices, compared, of course, to our neighbors all across the continent. We've been discussing the prospects of zero taxes for machinery generally, because machines mean production in one form or the other. So it makes sense if we're able to ensure that machines can come into the country easily and cheaply, so that more enterprises can benefit from machinery. We must, of course, encourage investments in information and communications technologies, the creative industry, and again, this is one of the areas where there has been some targeted interventions. And of course, if we go into the details, we might be able to find that, but we won't have time to do that today. In sum, government policy is geared towards making Nigeria a value-adding economy, especially in our areas of comparative advantage. And talking of comparative advantage, Nigeria must leverage its trading talents. We have some of the greatest traders and entrepreneurs in the world, such that we can become a global trading hub. It's important, in my view, to loosen generalized restrictions on trade. And this is a conversation that we've been having. There are, of course, there are arguments between the fiscal and monetary authorities about some of these issues, especially on account of shortages of foreign exchange, etc. But though many of us on the fiscal side believe that blanket import restrictions are a dampener on economic activity, because of a lot of items that might be needed in the manufacturing process might be affected, with consequent negative impact on value addition in the economy. So these times have helped in focusing our minds on the fastest and most inclusive pathways to prosperity for Nigeria. Our security situation is a many-sided one, but not only is it surmountable, it presents great opportunities. Somehow it's evident to me that aside from all of the kinetic and non-kinetic interventions that are required to deal with the security situation, there is a demand for a level of, for perhaps a higher level of patriotism, and I will come to this point later. This is a time when hostile non-state actors and sundry criminal elements have intensified their assaults on society and our way of life. But these threats to safety and well-being of our people have also encouraged agents of hate and intolerance to sow strife and breed enmity between communities that have lived together for centuries. So these voices are championing the idea that the path to peace and security lies in denigrating our common destiny and disintegrating our union. It's my respectful view that they are profoundly wrong. But it's not enough to know and say so. We are called also to adopt a steady and steely resolve, neither to encourage nor to condone those notions. We must not succumb to terror or to any form of hopelessness. If you consider, for example, the recent incident at Shasha Market in Oyo State, I'm sure that many of us are familiar with that, which was widely reported as an ethnic conflict between people of the Yoruba and Hausa extraction. The background, of course, is that Shasha has been a market where traders coming from the north have brought their market produce for literally hundreds of years, at least for decades. However, despite this, on account of the ethnic tensions that there were, we saw what happened. But the reality of that mayhem is that even in the midst of it, citizens from both communities also courageously aided, sheltered, and protected each other, ensuring that the criminal assailants did not wreak more havoc. In that instance, these citizens showed us that rather than turning on each other, we should be banding together against our common enemies, the criminal elements whose true tribe is terror and whose only creed is criminality. I want to say also that in reporting these sorts of incidents, the media has a responsibility to tell the whole story and to resist the captivity of the one-dimensional narrative. And when we say the media today, it's almost all of us, because more people are even posting stuff on various social media platforms than any of the organized media. But we must resist the one-dimensional narrative that gives prominence to those of us that are driven by their worst instincts, while ignoring those that are inspired to act according to our highest values. The truth of the matter is that there are far more of us and far more Nigerians who are interested in ensuring that this country remains one, and that this country, that we give ourselves a fair chance of working together. It's important for us to know that even while nihilists are hard at work, there are also men and women of goodwill who, as we've seen in Shasha and elsewhere in our nation, reach across ethnic and religious divides to make common cause with their compatriots in the name of our shared humanity. I believe that the vast majority of Nigerians are of this persuasion and are committed to peaceful coexistence. As I said earlier, the times that we're in call for resolve and courage from all of us, both government and the government. Government at all levels have sworn to secure and protect all Nigerians and guarantee that they can conduct their lawful business in peace and safety. I must say that this administration is committed to working with state governments and civil society and all stakeholders to secure our communities. This is why at the last meeting of the National Economic Council, state governments committed themselves to the following principles. And I want to suggest, I'm going to just look to mention some of those principles, because it's an important compact that the state governments agreed to as part of, obviously, of their responsibility for ensuring the welfare and security of the citizens that reside within their states. The first of these agreements is the protection of all residents, including non-indigenous communities and religious and ethnic minorities within the states. The second is the prompt investigation of crimes, as well as the arrest and prosecution of all suspects. As you know, the prosecution of crimes is really the responsibility of states. Most of these offenses are state offenses, and we've had occasion, of course, to invite attorneys general of states for discussions on the expeditious prosecution of persons who have been caught, and there are several persons awaiting trial in several states. Now, of course, you know that the arrest of citizens, investigation and arrest, is a federal province. It's within the powers, of course, of the police and other law enforcement agents. But I just want to emphasize that the governors accepted, that they had a very prominent role to play in ensuring the speedy prosecution of persons who are accused of various offenses. And you find that this is a prominent issue with a lot of Nigerians. Many Nigerians are concerned. You'll hear people say, Fulani herders have killed X and Y. How come we haven't seen prosecution? How come we haven't heard of prosecution? In some cases, of course, prosecution is taking place. Adequate publicity ought to be given. But in many cases, there are delays, and this, is across the various states, where quick prosecution of those who have been arrested would, of course, be the right and comforting thing to do, because obviously everyone is interested in seeing that justice is done, especially those who are victims of some of the criminality in many of the cases that we've seen. The third point is that in collaboration with the federal government, they agreed to the reconstruction of destroyed homes and payment of compensation for damage to property and livelihoods sustained during targeted attacks on communities within their jurisdictions. The fourth is ensuring that disease victims of violence are accorded dignified burial rights, and that their families, of course, are also, to the extent possible, compensated. The fifth is the immediate public and unequivocal condemnation of all manifestations of hatred, targeted violence, and other hate crimes against ethnic, religious, and minority groups. The sixth is ensuring that local security initiatives, whether they are state government law enforcement agencies or local vigilante groups or the community policing program of the Nigerian Police Force, are inclusive, that they are inclusive, and that they are composed with due consideration given to adequate representation of non-indigenous minority resident communities, to give everyone living in those communities a sense that we are fighting against, not against ethnic groups, not inter-ethnic conflicts, but we are fighting against criminality in whatever shape or form that it presents itself. The seventh is ensuring that all state, local, and communal security initiatives operate according to guidelines consistent with state legislation and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and other relevant laws, and are subjected to rigorous oversight. It's very easy for us to ignore excesses that may occur where we have where we have initiatives that are meant to deal with gaps in law enforcement. And but I think the governors agreed that there is a need for strict oversight of some of these law enforcement initiatives. The eighth is ensuring that innocent citizens and entire communities are not slandered, harassed, or victimized for the crimes perpetrated by criminal elements within those communities, purely on the basis of ethnic or religious affiliation. Then the final is the continued organization and participation in town hall meetings and other meetings that bring ethnic communities together, in localities in particular where ethnic strife has taken place. And this is to be convened by governors representing all geopolitical zones. So I think this set of agreements or a compact by the governors is an important one, because it sets the tone and sets the principles that we think that these issues and some of these security concerns, especially the inter-ethnic security concerns, can be dealt with. Of course, the devil, they say, is in the detail, perhaps even more so in the actual implementation of these principles. And we have held, we continue to hold the governors and of course the federal government to account to ensure that these principles are abided with. With the new service chiefs, we have a fresh set of eyes, intellect and skills, and a fresh look at strategies against insurgency in the Northeast, as well as banditry and kidnapping elsewhere. In this new approach, much greater emphasis is being placed on technology for surveillance, intelligence gathering, and interdiction. As you've heard, even up until yesterday, the President has given fresh orders to the service chiefs and has also pledged to give as much support to the procurement of platforms, procurement of weapons, and other and all sorts of other equipment that may be required to actively deal with questions of criminality and insecurity in different parts of the country. On his own part, the Nigeria Police is putting a new impetus behind community policing, and this is already being implemented across the states of the Federation. But we must accept that there is a need for greater decentralization of our police force. And I, of course, have been a frequent advocate of state policing, and I believe very seriously that this is ultimately the way we must go. The National Assembly, of course, is in a position today to consider some of the proposals that have gone to it for purposes of ensuring that we devolve more power to the states for security purposes and for meeting the security challenges that they may face. Regarding the perennial crisis of farmers and herders, both the federal and state governments are focused on the implementation of the National Livestock Transformation Plan. The NLTP is a comprehensive strategy for addressing farmer-herder conflicts, essentially by encouraging interested states to establish cattle ranches. Now, with these, cattle can be bred in purpose-developed facilities, which will have the standard requirements for the healthy growth and provide much higher economic benefits for all Nigerians that may choose to be involved in that line of business. I want to emphasize that the plan was developed by governors under the aegis of the National Economic Council. The crucial point here is that no community or state is compelled in any shape or form to give land for ranching. Ranching is essentially a business. It is open to any state or community or private individuals. It is not a land grab in any way. Every state, as some of us already know, is completely responsible for its land. The federal government cannot go to any state and take over any land. I mean, that is completely impossible given our current the current legal arrangements for land in Nigeria. So it is up to the states, it's up to private individuals who wish to participate in this to do so. Over 22 states have already indicated their interests, and 4 pilot programs are already going on in partnership with the government of the Netherlands, the Dutch government. Some of these are set to begin in Nasarawa State, in Plateau, in Gombe State, and in Niger State. And I must say that a lot of what we have seen is that if we are able to execute the livestock transformation plan, especially in the areas where we have considerably large amounts of livestock, we will be able to see an end to this conflict between farmers and herders, because obviously the goal is to make livestock breeders more sedentary, so that they are able not just to ensure that they don't just wander around, but also, more importantly, that they're able to derive financial benefit from breeding livestock. And the way it is anywhere is that the modern approach to it, of course, is that this be done in ranches. We provide adequate opportunities for the livestock breeders to provide the very best for their livestock. In conclusion, may I just say that the task of nation building is exerting and may even appear messy as the process continues. Nation building is no different, especially in a multi-ethnic and multi-religious nation. It challenges all our values, our patience and our tolerance. It may even be costly, sometimes in lives and livelihoods. But I believe that this is the challenge thrown to every generation. To build, not to destroy, to add to, not to take away from. The easier path of disintegration, and this is what is urged by some amongst us. But we're warned that it is easier to destroy than to build. If we agree that we are stronger together than apart, then it's our generational responsibility to put in place, block by block, the ramparts and the foundations of that union. I'd like to thank you all very much for your great patience in listening to my presentation. Thank you all very much.